Before we go in further, let me introduce to you the background of Seveso. So Seveso is actually a small suburban town located 10 miles north of Milan, Italy. Had a population of 17,000 in the 1970s and was one of several towns in the region that feature a mix of urban, residential and minor rural areas. It also a closed area to the chemical manufacturing owned by ICME SA, a subsidiary of the pharmaceutical company Hoffmann La Roche, and operated by the Givaudan organization. So the facility produces 2,4,5-trichlorophenol, which is utilized in the creation of cosmetic and medicine. What happened in Seveso? So on the afternoon of Saturday, July 10, 1976, as people in Seveso and the surrounding area were watching their kids play, running errands or tending to their garden, one of the buildings in the chemical plant became dangerously hot, raising the temperature and pressure inside one of the plant tanks. When the temperature exceeded a critical point, a pressure release valve exploded, releasing a cloud of hazardous gas including sodium hydroxide, ethylene glycol, and sodium trichlorophenic. The gas cloud that passed over Seveso neighborhood also include estimate 15 to 30 kg of TCDD, also known as 2378 tetrachlorodibenzodioxane. Dioxin is known as human carcinogen and endocrine disruptor. It's very lipophilic and has a lengthy half-life in human. Residents in the part of the aerosol cloud experienced nausea, headache, and eye discomfort, while 19 children were brought to the local hospital with a skin sore.
The Seveso disaster was primarily caused by the expression of 15 to 30 kg of highly toxic 2378 tetrachlorodibenzopidioxane or TCCD. TCCD is a highly toxic form of dioxin produced as a byproduct during the synthesis of trichlorophenol, which is used in herbicide production. TCCD is one of the most dangerous synthetic chemicals. It has extreme toxicity, chemical persistence, and bioaccumulative properties. TCCD is classified as human carcinogen by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. It's also a lipophilic substance that long half-life. It can store 7 to 9 years in human fat tissues and also cause a bioaccumulation in human body. TCCD also an endocrine disruptor that affect the hormonal systems even at low doses. Humans can be exposed to TCCD by inhalation of polluted air, thermal contact, and ingestions of contaminated food. Moreover, the primary hazard was chronic exposure, not immediate death. The effects will appear over time, cause delay in initial emergency responses due to a lack of visible signs and insufficient hazard awareness. Because of this, the impacts will become severe over time.
Next, I'm going to be explaining the impacts of Seveso disaster upon individual, community, as well as aftermath response. Now, in terms of individual, it is being divided into two, which is short-term health effects and long-term health effects. For short-term health effect, it happens immediately after the Seveso disaster itself on July 1976, where the residents experienced nausea, eye irritation, vomiting, as well as headaches. 19 children were hospitalized with severe skin lesion as well as a significant outbreak of chloracne, a rare skin condition due to dioxin exposure, which affects 48% of the children there. Long-term health effects, on the other hand, can be seen through first cancer, which will most probably be experienced by women through breast cancer based on their TCDD levels. Second is reproductive and endocrine effects. Women who are exposed before puberty will have a longer menstrual cycle. However, for men that are exposed as a young age will experience lower sperm count and motility as well as a hormonal disruption. And it is also observed that higher infertility and longer time to pregnancy. Lastly, there is a cardiovascular and metabolic disease. Men will experience increase in ischemic heart disease. However, women will experience high diabetes mortality as well as increased metabolic syndrome whom are exposed below the age of 12. Furthermore, the impacts of Seveso disaster upon community. The community will experience social and physiological impact in terms of experiencing deep fear and uncertainty, which also leads to women seeking for illegal abortion in Italy, as abortion wasn't legal in Italy at that time. On top of that, there were widespread of concern regarding birth defects and genetic damage for future generation. And lastly, distrust in government and authorities grew due to delay and unclear communication when handling the crisis. Lastly is the aftermath response upon Seveso disaster. Firstly, within weeks, health authorities launched a large-scale investigation. Second, thousands of bloods were collected and stored. Third, Seveso Women's Health Study was initiated in 1996, which tracked the health outcomes of women exposed to TCDD. Serum TCDD concentration from 1976 were used to estimate individual exposure levels. And lastly, follow-up studies include assessment of reproductive health, metabolic disorders, cancers, and aging.
Next, we move on to the lesson learned from the Seveso disaster. The aftermath of Seveso disaster led to the creation of the Seveso Directive 1982, a regulatory framework that required companies handling toxic substances to conduct detailed risk assessment, maintain strict safety documentation, and implement emergency planning and land use policies. This directive has evolved into the Seveso III Directive, currently shaping the chemical safety laws across the European Union and serving as a model globally. Second, the importance of chemical risk awareness and emergency preparation. The disaster emphasized the essential demand for real-time hazard assessment, proper chemical hazard labeling, and clear emergency response protocols. Any delayed evacuation will result in increased human exposure and greater long-term health consequences. Third, the necessity of robust industrial safety systems. Seveso disaster has exposed how poor the reactor design, lack of redundancy in safety systems, and inadequate monitoring technology can lead to the tragic outcomes. Hence, improvement in engineering controls should be considered in handling hazard substances. For instance, automated shutdowns, pressure relief valves, and hazard control systems. Last, worker and community safety. The disaster highlighted the role of workers in preventing chemical incidents. The initiatives that can be done are hazard awareness, safety drills, and correct use of personal protective equipment (PPE). Public health protection also requires community awareness initiatives and whistleblower protection laws to encourage reporting of unsafe conditions.
In conclusion, this strategy demonstrated how serious chemical accidents may be happen when safety precautions are not followed. Seveso developed the creation of new legislation in Europe known as Seveso Directive, which is aimed to make industry safer and prevent such incidents in the future. Finally, the Seveso tragedy not only exposed the potential fatal consequence of chemical carelessness, but also served as a driving force for tighter regulation, improved industry practice, and increased public awareness of chemical safety and environmental protection. That's all for us. Thank you.